First of all, I want to thank everybody that's here for this rededication of the John Tower tree. I was fortunate enough to know John Tower on several levels, both fraternally and a little bit politically. Before I do that, I want to mention two brothers that would truly have loved to have been here with us today. Brother Roger Davidson, who was John Tower's roommate and was a huge supporter of Iota, died earlier this year. They were great friends through life, and he was a big supporter. And Brother Bruce Barrick, who was a pretty big Democrat, a good friend. And John Tower was a man of service. He served his nation in the Navy. He served his nation as a United States Senator. And while he was a United States Senator, he served Southwestern University on the board of directors. He served Kappa Sigma as our worthy Grand Master, which is to say he was the national president of our fraternity at the same time that I was president of Iota chapter. Bruce Barrick asked me to help him start a young Republican club on the Southwestern University campus. And I helped him. And later I went on to run for College Club's chairman of the Young Republicans in Texas, a statewide office in which I was fortunate enough to win. And so I got to know leaders in the Republican Party, including Ann Armstrong and John Tower and the other people. So I got to know him on both sides. But he truly loved Iota, and he was a great friend of Iota, and he was somebody who believed in the system, believed in fraternities. And like a lot of us in the liberal arts tradition that fraternities offer, he believed that they add a dimension to people's lives that formal education can't fill, because we're exposed to each other as brothers, and it teaches tolerance, and it teaches acceptance. You learn differences in backgrounds, differences in culture, in a way that you can't unless you live as brothers. And he truly believed in that system. Now, John Tower in stature was not, in physical stature, a big man, but the stature of the man was great. And he was a true friend of ours.
Jody Bailey, our past worthy Grand Scribe.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for the weekend here so far. I don't have a long history with Iota like Brother Tower, but I have a long history with Kappa Sigma. And I can tell you, people ask you what you're going to say or what you're going to do when you come to something like this, and it's hard to describe. First of all, just a simple guy from eastern New Mexico, and I'm asked to speak about a man who really was a giant. And again, it wasn't in his stature that he was a giant. It was in the impact he had on other people's lives. And when you're asked why you serve in this fraternity, why do you do it? I would like to say the reason I do it is to make a difference. And we have role models like Brother Tower who showed us what making a difference can be like. You think about all the things he's done here. You know, the greatest stories I have are not his big flamboyant things he did, but it's hearing the stories of when he would show up at the chapter house and he would come in and talk to the brothers, and he would try and reach out to them, or when he heard they were in trouble, we were just talking about this a few minutes ago, where the charter might get pulled, that he would step in and make sure that it stayed intact. That's the real character of a man, is what does he do behind the scenes, not what does he do out front. I wasn't fortunate enough to know him person to person, but I knew of him because of my acquaintances. And even now, many years after he's passed away, he is still talked about, revered, and looked up to. And I think that says a lot about what kind of man he was and what kind of difference he's made. And that's why we're here today, to rededicate this tree and to remember what he's done for Iota, but on an even greater scale, what he's done for this university, this state, and our country. I am awed by a person who's willing to take leadership on and make a difference in our society, because I think we're starved for that, for men who truly want to make a difference for the right reasons. But everything I've seen and heard about Brother Tower indicates that that's the type of man he was, the type of man that we can be proud of. I think probably the most revered thing I ever heard anyone say was Brother Bob Dole was talking at a ceremony they had when he passed away. And he was talking a little bit about it, and he told the crowd, he said, many of you may not know this, but Brother Tower is a fraternity brother of mine. And one of the memories he had of Brother Tower was that he always had on his Kappa Sigma ring. And I think that more than anything tells you where his heart was. He didn't take it off for anything. He wore it. He was proud of it. He was proud to be a Kappa Sigma. And I think we can all be proud that he was part of our organization. We can all be proud of what he's done and the difference he's made. And hopefully we can use him as an example and use this as a reminder to go forward in the way he wanted to make a difference and to have fun doing it, because I know he had some fun too. And that's what this world needs. We need more men like Brother Tower. So again, I'm honored to be representing the National Fraternity, to be here. It's been a great experience so far. Looking forward to spending more time with you. But I hope we realize how fortunate we were to have him in our fraternity and to have him as a part of our history, and he'll always be a part of our future. Thank you.
Everybody, this is John Tower's daughter, Jean Tower Cox.
Well, I'm sorry you all don't have chairs, because Eric told me I had 30 minutes. But anyway, thank you, Kappa Sigs, for inviting me here today. I can't tell you what a huge part the Kappa Sigs played in my life and the life of my sisters growing up. You know, we didn't really take family vacations in the traditional sense. We went to Kappa Sig conclaves and to Southwestern reunions, and I can assure you my father had more fun than any kid at Disneyland could ever do. So it was great growing up with the worthy Grandmaster John Gifford Tower. And President Trump, thank you for letting me be back on this great campus today.
It's our pleasure.
Southwestern University was the place that my father spent so many of his formative and transformative years. Dad used to get a twinkle in his eye when he would recall his parents dropping him off here at Southwestern to start his freshman year. And he said as he watched their tail lights crest the hill as the car was leaving to return home, he just thought, Yahoo! He was the local preacher's kid no longer. He was a college man, and the world was at his feet, and he was ready to take it on. So he had the fondest memories of Southwestern. Southwestern was also the place that he found a brotherhood in the fraternity that he loved so much, the Kappa Sigs. He would write home to assure his parents that this was primarily a study group that went to church together. So I'm not sure if his parents were fooled by that or not, but they seemed to accept that. Southwestern University was the place where my father would sharpen his intellectual and rhetorical skills, and those were attributes that served him very well all of his life. Southwestern was also the place that my father discovered he might not get the call to preach, but instead a call to public service. Southwestern was also the place that Dad enlisted in the US Navy. He had tried to do that on December 8th of 1941 when he was 16 years old. He looked 13, and they certainly wouldn't take him then. But after his freshman year at Southwestern, he did enlist in the Navy, and 3 years later came back to finish his degree here. But that was the beginning of a life dedicated to his country and service to his country. I can't think of a nicer or a more fitting honor than to have a sturdy oak tree in honor of my dad. He was absolutely the bravest, the strongest, and along with my husband, the smartest man I've ever known. When my father and sister were suddenly and very tragically killed in an airplane crash, I discovered then that my father had left me with what I needed the most, and that was faith. My father's character was forged in his faith. It was his foundation in good times and in bad. And although he loved the biblical admonishment to gather your treasures in heaven, he did have one earthly treasure that he absolutely adored. It was his Kappa Sig ring that my sweet mother, had given him. And he wore that ring every single day of his life until the day he died. And he's wearing it still. Eric asked me where his ring is, and he's buried with it. I just know that Dad is smiling down on this from heaven today, and for those of you who knew him, you can imagine that twinkle in his eye. And I believe he would quite humbly and simply say, "Thank you, brothers. Thank you."
President Jake Crone.
Well, I don't think much needs to be said after hearing Gene speak. And Gene, it's so good to have you here and your family here. I know your sister served on our board of trustees, Penny, and I know she couldn't be here because she's having her reunion at SMU today. But it's so good to have you on campus. I know that if John Tower, class of 48, were here today, he'd be the best dressed person here. I can tell you that for sure. That's one of the things I remember about. I think we actually have 3 or 4 Kappa Sigma brothers on our board of trustees. I just see one of them here right now, and that's Blake Stanford. Is Tom Forbes here? Blake, raise your hand so everybody knows you. Bob Rourke is a member of Iota chapter. Bob Rourke from San Antonio, and Tom Forbes from Austin. I don't think there are any other Iota chapter members on our board, but it's a pleasure to welcome all of you back to homecoming, to the 125th anniversary of Iota chapter of Kappa Sigma on our campus. Those are a lot of years. Congratulations. A lot of fraternities anywhere on any campus don't make it that long. And congratulations. And on a wonderful tradition of leadership and service that your fraternity has had here at Southwestern. I was fortunate enough today to go over to the house, which has been renovated, and I think Senator Tower would be very, very pleased with the way the house looks now. So thank all of you who are part of the renovation of the Kappa Sigma fraternity house. Some of you may know that the reason we're rededicating the tree is because of a kind of a blooper, I guess you would call it. When we were adding to the Seraphim School of Fine Arts, our physical plant staff took down a tree, the tower tree. And I don't know where that tree is now, but this marker was taken over to physical plant, and somehow or another people just kind of forgot about it. And Bruce Barrick, Bruce is really on the ball.
Still is.
He called Georgianne Hewitt, our alumni director, and said, "I've walked all over campus and I can't find the tower tree." And so Georgianne said, "I'll check into that and I'll get back to you." A week later, Bruce was dead. And a very untimely death, as you know. So she checked with someone in our physical plant. Oh yes, we took that tree down and we haven't put the marker by another tree, so we checked with everyone to see if you'd like for us to plant a new tree or a younger tree or an older sturdy tree. And you chose this tree here. And I think it's so very appropriate because it's just a few feet from the Tower Archives, which Senator Tower wanted to have here at Southwestern. I want to point out that John Tower, who I did have a chance to meet several times, there were three things that I know were important to him in terms of institutions. The Methodist Church, even though he decided not to be a Methodist minister, the Methodist Church was important to him and to his family. Kappa Sigma fraternity, Iota chapter especially, and Southwestern University. And I know for a fact that in good times and bad times for all of those organizations, he was there for us. He was there for you, there for Southwestern, and I'm sure for the United Methodist Church as well. I think those three are great combinations. And then when you put his intellect with it, and his incredible vision of what he thought this country could be, he obviously was one of the greatest political leaders from this state who served our country. I think there are very few people from the state of Texas who have done for this country what John Tower has done. And so it makes all the sense in the world for us to rededicate this tree in memory of him and in honor of his service to the country, to Southwestern, to Iota chapter of Kappa Sigma, and to the United Methodist Church. Thank you all for being here with us today. I hope you have a great rest of the weekend, and I know that he would want you to have some fun.